So my thoughts today as I drive home are related to the kerfuffle that everybody who's active on social media probably saw right after the Super Bowl or even during the Super Bowl, when we all got online to, for me as a Chiefs fan, express my anguish over the way that game went, which was embarrassing and horrible for us here in Kansas City. But also we're proud of our team and all that stuff. But of course, then you get drawn into the conversation, the inevitable conversation if you're on social media, about the music of the Super Bowl. It happens every year. This year, though, I felt like it was a little bit more toxic than normal. And I think that's also something you could describe as pretty much how social media conversations from year to year have been developing over the last few years. It's just a little bit every year, it's a little bit more toxic. So there are a few key words come up in these types of conversations. One of those key words is elitism, another one is gatekeeping, and another one is support. All right, and so these are the kind of the buzzwords that get thrown into all of these conversations, and there are a few different schools of thought. One is that we need to simply be supportive of any arts endeavor in all of our thoughts, words, and deeds, which seems a little bit extreme to me, but that's out there. In other words, I saw posts that were like, if you have anything other than good things to say about that performance or the musical offerings at the Super Bowl, you just need to shut up and keep your thoughts to yourself. Which, that's a very strange take to me, because music has existed in an environment of criticism forever. In fact, I don't even know that it would be a desirable thing for the trajectory of music to try to shame criticism out of the musical world or our endeavors. I don't know that we would actually like the outcome of that. We might think that it seems very idealistic to say that basically all music is good and everyone should praise all music all the time. But the problem with that is there isn't enough time in the day. We have chosen, or humans organize our lives around our preferences in some sort of hierarchy all the time. We have to, or else we wouldn't be able to function. If I didn't operate based on some type of a hierarchy of values, I wouldn't be able to take a step out my door. I have to decide, is this more worth my time or is that worth my time? Now, music is no different. Music requires that of us as well, because we can't listen to all of it, we can't teach all of it in our classrooms, and we can't even appreciate all of it because of the amount of time that it would take for us to learn enough about each type of music for us to appreciate. So what does that even mean? So all of that really boils down to the idea that we have, as in any art form, in music, we will have preferences, right? So we have preferences so that we, as a time-saving mechanism, all people have them. We have to have them, as I argued, or else we wouldn't be able to function, okay? So then the question becomes, legitimate questions as I see them, are how do we then express those preferences? What is the time, what is the place for expressing our preferences? Is it better to only express the ones that are positive? In other words, I'm going to say, I like this music. And then if there's some music I don't like, I just won't talk about it. Like, I won't make a social media post about it, or that's one approach, and I can see arguments for that for sure. In fact, in a conversation that I had during the Super Bowl, that was essentially said to me. In other words, you don't have to say your opinion. And of course, I usually, when things like that come at me on social media, that usually comes across to me as a polite way to tell someone to shut up, which obviously I don't and won't. I'm going to continue to say what I think. So what's interesting about this conversation, though, to me, is that it brings up some blind spots, I think, in lots of people that are worth poking at just a little bit. So in other words, if you have the position of we should appreciate all music and cheerlead all music, I've already kind of explained why I disagree with that. But that's not the same thing as we should tear down musicians and music. So I think there's a difference between, for example, me saying something like, I didn't like that performance, versus I think that performer needs to be canceled, or I think that person should have no audience at all, or even worse, and this is probably how it manifests itself the most, is making fun of someone else in some way for liking that music. So I don't like it, that's fine, but you shouldn't like it either. That, for me, that's where the line is, okay? So one of the thoughts that I had and posted and had a conversation about this online a couple nights ago was that, is it okay, so where is that line? Is it okay to say that you thought that the music sucked in some way? Now, I use the word suck because I speak that way. Like, I don't mean it in any kind of like derogatory way, but suck just meaning not very good. Is it okay for you to think that and express that in some way that isn't the same thing as telling other people that they shouldn't like it? Right? That, to me, that's what's interesting. That's where the line is, or to try to find the line that I find to be interesting. And so I brought up that question, which was always one of the challenging things on social media, is then the assumption people will make when having those conversations with me online is they will assume things about my intention in those conversations and not bother to ask. That's very, very common. So when I brought that up, I actually was not saying that I thought the music sucked. What I was asking is, in what way is it okay to express that you think the music sucks, if that's your position? So just to clarify that, just to give you an idea, my personal take, for example, the national anthem drew a big, as it has my entire adult life, has drawn arguments about whether or not the national anthem at the Super Bowl sucked or not. Like, that's, to me, that's not a new conversation. We've been having that conversation for decades. And so that's an interesting thing. I personally found the arrangement to be drawn out. I lost some of the sense of where the phrases in the national anthem are, and that kind of bothered me. It didn't like make me mad. I was just like, okay. And I didn't like the country singer's voice. It sounded labored to me. I'd never heard of him, keeping in mind I also don't like country music. Does that make me somehow wrong? I don't know. It's a preference that I have. I don't like country music. I haven't my entire life. But people who like country music may have really enjoyed that because maybe they're used to certain aspects of the way the voice works, and maybe even some of the accent of the singer and or the cadence of the singer. Maybe all these things are normal if you enjoy country music, but then from my perspective, I didn't like that. It just didn't do anything for me. I enjoyed the lady's voice, but again, I don't know who she is because I don't follow any types of pop music, really. I don't listen to music, actually. I just listen to music when I'm at work. And so I have this idea about my own opinion about that. But when I entered into these conversations with several different people on social media the night of the Super Bowl, I actually wasn't bringing those opinions to bear. I was really more asking, what is our line for discussing these things, and what is the difference between saying that I personally like or don't like something, and then and trying to push that opinion onto other people as something that they should think or feel. And for me, that's where the conversation and the giving each other the benefit of the doubt is important. Okay, so if someone expresses opinion that is different than yours and you don't really like the way that they express it, one of the habits that I've gotten into is asking a follow-up question. In other words, you say something to me on social media that rubs me the wrong way, I will almost always ask you a question back. In other words, a clarifying question. Did you really mean that way? And I won't usually say that it rubbed me the wrong way, but I'll just ask the question, because at the very least, if I'm going to be offended by something you say, I would like to be sure that it's what you meant. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt first. I'm going to say, that really? Did you really mean to say that? Is this really what you meant? And I think that's an important aspect of this conversation as well, because somebody could express their opinion about music in a Super Bowl, and maybe they say it in a harsher way than you think that they should say it, and maybe it directly contradicts your opinion about the Super Bowl music or whatever it is that you're discussing. And so you ask that follow-up question just to kind of get an idea of where does this person stand on this issue, to make a decision for myself if I want to continue that conversation, if I want to continue going down this road of parsing out the musical nerdery of what it is that we do. You know, when we hear music and we pick it apart, that's partly what we've been trained to do. And there, of course, is a line in there of what's healthy and what's not healthy as it relates to this, right? And then the last thought about this, because I'm home now, and these little car thoughts need to be around 9 minutes, because that's usually my drive. I have a 9-minute drive time pretty much to everywhere I go. So the last aspect to this, and I did post this on one of the another colleague's thread that was discussing, because like I said, this was a hot topic, so I was talking about this with lots of people online, where one aspect that I didn't see anyone else raise, and so I thought I'd throw it in there, which is I think a lot of the reason that we do pick on the Super Bowl music or pop music in general, and there's this idea that, well, sure, like choral classical musicians, we just have this huge problem with elitism and the way that we critique music. And I think that that's true, except I think it's oversimplified and there's a deeper layer. So let me float this to you, and I'd be interested to know what you think about this. I think sometimes us classically trained musicians / musicians who work in community music organizations, churches, and schools, some of us feel at some level of our psyche jealous when we see pop musicians on TV. And here's what I mean. And I don't even mean this to be like accusatory. I've felt this myself. I've taken voice lessons for 15 years, probably at least. I've taught voice lessons for 20 years. I've picked apart my own voice for hours and hours and tried to strive for as perfect of a sound as I possibly can create when I sing. It's a painstaking effort. It's a lifetime of effort. And no one pays me like they get paid. Okay? So I think at a deep level within the classical music community, there is a certain amount, especially for singers, because, you know, at the high end, oftentimes, of being a classical singer, there would be the person who gets an opera gig, and maybe that lasts for a few weeks, and then they don't have a gig. Or in the professional choir world, maybe in a local pro choir type of a situation, I might make $20 an hour for some rehearsals, and then do a concert. And maybe if I'm in one of the fancy choirs, maybe it's more than that, but it's temporary. And then we look at these pop singers that clearly have not put in the time that we have into perfecting our vocal sound, and we feel maybe a little bit of layers of resentment that they are the ones who are now famous. Maybe they're a TikTok 18-year-old kid who sang a video and went viral, and now they're on a TV commercial as a singer, and we're like, really, that kid? I've been working my whole life to be a singer, and they're probably getting paid thousands of dollars for that ad spot, and they're going to ramp up their social media access, and they're going to make a career as a singer with basically no work put into it, right? So all of that being said, I actually think there's nothing wrong with that. That's the thing, is if you get to the level of nuance of this issue where I'm 41, so I've gone through that process of being resentful a little bit and being jealous of how pop musicians can make more money if they strike it big than, say, a classical choral singer can. Even if they become in the upper echelon of the classical pro choral world, right? You're still going to make more money as getting a gig at the Super Bowl halftime show, or whatever it is. And I don't even know how much they get paid. You just have to assume that if it's on that kind of a platform, you're getting paid some X number of dollars that we would love as classical musicians to get paid, right? So I think there's that aspect of it too. And so when we vent these things on social media, when we critique the voice of someone who is a pop singer and we critique their technique and we pick on them, I do agree that there's a line there we should be very careful with. But turning around and calling that only elitism or snobbery, I think, is missing a deeper level of psychosis there. Is there also, I think, is a jealousy there, which when we analyze ourselves and how we communicate about music with the world, that is something I would prefer to see us analyze and become self-critical of our own sense of what it means to us to be successful in life and in our careers. And maybe that's the root of some of our looking at the pop and commercial side of music with a little bit of extra critique. That could be where that comes from. So just some food for thought on a 7-degree day outside my house. It's really cold out here, but hang in there, guys. I'm interested to know what you think about my car thoughts today.